She was simply riding her bicycle, planning to buy some things from a nearby town, when she was suddenly stopped by German soldiers who asked her to help push their vehicle. With no other choice, she obediently followed the soldiers' request, but what she never expected was that this moment would lead her to meet the most important person in her life. With just one glance, Helena's heart was completely captivated by the handsome German soldiers standing before her. But knowing her country was at war with Germany, Helena felt hesitant about this sudden love. Even more troubling, the handsome soldier didn't seem to notice the plain-looking Helena at all. Watching the German soldier walk away, a wave of helpless disappointment washed over her. Helpless, Helena channeled all her disappointment into pushing the vehicle with greater effort. But a few nights later, the same handsome German soldier unexpectedly appeared before her once again, and it seemed that he recognized Helena as the girl who had helped push the vehicle. As soon as the soldier entered the room, Helena immediately began fixing her hair and makeup in front of the mirror, trying every way to present her best self to him. Just then, the soldier suddenly spoke from behind her. Helena slowly turned to face him, and in that moment of eye contact, it seemed she had entered the soldier's heart as well. In the days that followed, Helena often saw the soldier appear near her. Just as she thought something might happen between them, she heard from others that the soldier was about to leave the hospital to work at a concentration camp. After much thought, and with her extensive nursing experience, Helena made a significant decision. Ignoring her family's objections, she resolutely applied to work at the concentration camp. And so, driven by love, Helena came to this hellish place known as the concentration camp. As soon as she entered the camp gates, she saw German soldiers executing Jewish prisoners, barbed wire everywhere, emaciated prisoners, and an overwhelming sense of suffocation were Helena's first impressions of the camp. But none of this mattered to her. She was here only to pursue her love. Dragging her suitcase, Helena slowly approached the German officer in charge of the camp. The cold officer briefly introduced her to the different areas of the camp. In a stern tone, he warned Helena to stay within her designated area and not to wander, or he would show no mercy. Throughout this, the cold officer never once turned to look at Helena. Days passed in the camp, yet Helena still hadn't encountered the soldier she admired, until one afternoon, when a sudden explosion sounded behind her. Turning her head slowly, she saw the prisoners running in panic. Before she could react, another violent explosion erupted behind her. Looking up in shock, she saw fighter planes roaring overhead. Helena was completely frozen by the terrifying scene. In a daze, she walked back toward her workroom, only for a bomb to explode near her. By sheer luck, she survived unscathed. Moments later, her workplace was reduced to rubble. Having experienced such horror for the first time, Helena wandered the camp like a soulless shell. Eventually, a kind German soldier brought her into an air raid shelter. There, she finally encountered the soldier she adored. He too seemed new to the war, sitting beside her with a blank expression and trembling hands as the bombs exploded outside. Seizing the moment, Helena gently took his hand under the pretense of comforting him. This became their first intimate contact. Later, Helena saw a prisoner steal a bottle of medicine. She immediately demanded that he return it to the table, warning that she would alert the guards. But the prisoner pleaded, saying he planned to escape that night and needed the medicine for his illness during the journey. Hearing this, Helena was momentarily at a loss for what to do. Then, the prisoner begged her not to lock the ward door that night to aid his escape. He promised to make it look like the door had been forced open and would not implicate Helena. As Helena hesitated, two German soldiers entered with an injured man. Helena quickly returned to reality and told the prisoners she would pretend she hadn't heard anything. She then left the room, but later that evening, her kind heart wavered once more. After much deliberation, she ultimately chose to help the escaping prisoner. At dawn, Helena was awakened by alarms. Rushing outside, she saw German soldiers assembling. She soon learned they were preparing to chase the escaped prisoner. This completely panicked Helena, fearing the prisoner might expose her involvement if caught. At that moment, she spotted the soldier she admired, Johannes. Learning that Johannes was leading the mission, she begged him to let her join the pursuit. She explained that as a nurse, she could help if any soldiers were injured, having feelings for her as well. Johannes agreed without hesitation, and so Helena embarked on the mission with her beloved Johannes. After some time, their path was blocked by soldiers. The soldiers informed them that mines had been planted by partisans and the area was impassable for now. With no other choice, they disembarked and waited for the mines to be cleared. Seizing the opportunity, Helena asked Johannes if he could spare the prisoner. To her surprise, Johannes firmly replied that it was his duty, and he could not. Just then, Soviet planes appeared overhead, launching a fierce bombardment. Soviet troops hidden nearby began firing deadly bullets at them. In the chaos, Johannes led Helena in a frantic escape. They hid behind a truck, tightly embracing each other. In that moment of closeness with Johannes, Helena's fear vanished, replaced by overwhelming happiness. As the Soviets held the advantage, the Germans suffered heavy losses and began retreating. Johannes led Helena in a desperate leap into a small river. Bullets whizzed past as they fled through the water. Fortunately, they managed to escape the battlefield. Their bond deepened greatly after this experience. The next morning, they began walking back toward the camp. Not long into their journey, they came across an abandoned wooden cabin. Without hesitation, Helena kicked the door open, claiming she was too tired to continue. In truth, she wanted more time alone with Johannes. They stayed in the cabin from morning until dusk, but during all that time, Johannes lay on the bed with his back to Helena. Helena sat by the stove, quietly watching him. The entire day passed, and only at nightfall did the hungry Johannes finally get up. After a day of silence, they began chatting. Instead of returning to the camp immediately, they spent several days living in the abandoned cabin. Their mutual affection blossomed fully. They lived happily in the forest, as if the outside world's war no longer existed. One day, shots were suddenly fired from the woods. Helena realized that Johannes's camera might hold secrets. He never let her touch it, and grew serious whenever it was mentioned. That day, after Johannes left to fetch water, Helena immediately focused on the camera. After a moment's hesitation, she approached and opened it. What she saw horrified her. There were photos of an unknown girl, and brutal images of German soldiers slaughtering prisoners. Helena couldn't believe her beloved Johannes was both a deceitful lover and a killer. Furious, she threw the photos into the stove and burned them. Just then, Johannes, realizing he'd forgotten his camera, rushed back. Seeing the open camera case, he understood everything. Angrily, he demanded why Helena had touched his camera. Fuming, he donned his uniform and prepared to take Helena back to the camp. Blocking his path, Helena demanded an explanation. Before he could answer, gunfire erupted from the bushes. Johannes quickly grabbed Helena, and they fled the cabin in panic. It turned out the cabin belonged to hunters. Seeing German soldiers occupying it, they had fired shots to scare them away. After returning to the camp, Helena and Johannes remained estranged for days. She waited for him to explain the photos, but he never came. One afternoon, Helena heard commotion outside. Rushing out, she saw a woman surrounded by German soldiers. Crying in fear, Helena hurried over to ask what was happening, but the German officer sternly told her to mind her own duties. Helena had no choice but to get up and leave. Previously, Helena had been completely immersed in her love, paying no real attention to the concentration camp. Now, having calmed down, she finally began to carefully observe and explore the camp's secrets. She noticed that many prisoners entered a mysterious building every day, a building off limits to anyone without a permit. Ignoring the ban, she seized an opportunity to sneak around to the back window of that building. Peeking through the window, she saw only piles of clothes stacked inside. Nothing else was visible. The next morning, she directly questioned the German female doctor who worked in that mysterious building, asking, "What exactly do you do in there every day?" Hearing her question, the female doctor remained silent for a long time before simply saying, "It's my duty." Tears at the corners of the doctor's eyes caught Helena's attention. Afterward, Helena often secretly observed the doctor. She discovered that the doctor frequently wept in private even during cheerful celebrations. As she sang upbeat songs, her face remained streaked with tears, full of anguish and despair, as if trapped in immense helplessness and torment. A few nights later, the female doctor ultimately chose to end her life by poison. As a result, Helena was assigned to take over the doctor's duties, finally gaining the chance to enter the mysterious building and uncover the truth. It turned out that the Germans were conducting various medical experiments on the prisoners. Though Helena was repulsed by these human experiments, powerless as she was, she could only obey orders and continue the work. After several days of cold silence, Helena finally approached Johannes. She told him everything she had seen inside the mysterious building. She had expected Johannes to be just as outraged as she was, but to her surprise, Johannes already knew all about it. He even shared more horrifying truths. Because Johannes worked as an army photographer, he often accompanied German troops, recording many dark secrets that could never be revealed to the outside world. Witnessing countless brutal massacres unfold before his eyes had taken a tremendous toll on kind-hearted Johannes, causing him to develop a condition that made his whole body tremble, his hands constantly shaking. The photos Helena had found in the cabin had been secret evidence Johannes had kept. documenting the atrocities committed by the Germans, and the girl in one of those photos had been his first love, a Jewish girl who was arrested and later perished in the concentration camp. After hearing Johannes' confession, Helena slowly lifted her head, realizing that perhaps only now did she truly understand the man before her. At dawn the next day, Johannes received an urgent order and was transferred out of the camp. Sharp-minded Helena understood that in such chaotic wartime, this farewell might well be their last, but they were merely insignificant figures caught in the tides of history. Their fates were no longer in their own hands. Helplessly, Helena could only watch as her beloved Johannes departed. Without Johannes, the camp suddenly felt like a giant prison, subjecting Helena to endless torment. She proactively went to the German officer, requesting permission to leave the camp. The officer offered her a glass of wine, thanking her for her contributions to the Third Reich. Helena thought this was her farewell toast, but to her dismay, the officer told her, "The war is turning against Germany. Now, more than ever, we need everyone's efforts. I will not let any useful person leave this camp, not even myself." It was then Helena fully realized that from the moment she had volunteered to work here, she had been trapped in an invisible web. To leave now, the war would have to end, or she would have to become a useless corpse. Helpless, she continued performing the Germans' gruesome experiments day after day. Haunted by the despair on the prisoners' faces, time and again, she pulled out the photos Johannes had taken of her, recalling their sweet days together in the cabin. Though they had only spent a few short days there, those memories gave Helena the strength to carry on. Every day, new prisoners arrived every day. Lives ended, time slipped away in Helena's agonizing wait. Then, one day, among the prisoners marked for medical experiments, she suddenly saw a woman, her best friend's mother. Helena immediately rushed to the German officer, begging him to show mercy and release her friend's mother, but the cold-hearted officer was unmoved. In the end, though, he grudgingly agreed not to use Helena's friend's mother for the experiments. Though Helena couldn't save her outright, at least she had bought her some time. 3 months later, one afternoon, the officer received an urgent order. The front lines were collapsing. Clear the camp immediately. Clear meant burning all documents, murdering all prisoners, and destroying all evidence. The camp erupted into frantic activity. No longer working in secret, the Germans began slaughtering prisoners openly, rapidly reducing their numbers day and night. Gunfire and wailing filled the air. Chaos reigned. Seeing the carnage, Helena fell into deep silence. To protect her friend's mother, she secretly hid her in the interrogation room, one of the safest places, rarely used by the Germans. Then, seizing the chaos, Helena snuck into the German officer's office. She had once seen where he kept the safe key, and now she planned to steal sensitive documents and research data. But just as she opened the safe, footsteps approached. Panicked, Helena quickly returned the files, locked the safe, and hid the key on her person. She then sat calmly at the desk, pretending to wait to report to the officer, but the suspicious officer immediately demanded she hand over the safe key. Helena panicked inside, but forced herself to say she had never seen any key. Without another word, the officer ordered his men to check the safe. When they reported the key missing, the officer slapped Helena hard across the face. That blow awakened a courage long buried in Helena's heart. For the first time, she loudly cursed the officer as a butcher, a devil. She regretted helping him conduct those horrific experiments and cursed him to hell for all eternity. But no matter how Helena raged, the slaughter in the camp continued. She was publicly interrogated for attempting to steal state secrets and aiding prisoner escapes. By then, the Germans had noticed one prisoner missing, Helena's friend's mother. The officer was certain Helena was involved. He told her, "Reveal the prisoner's location, and all will be forgiven." But no matter what promises he made, Helena refused to speak. From a nurse managing prisoners, she was now just another doomed captive. She even lost her beloved long hair. To extract the prisoner's whereabouts, Helena was sent to the interrogation room. There, she also learned from the officer that Johannes' unit had been wiped out by the Soviets. The news crushed her. Her last flicker of hope began to fade. At this point, the Germans were racing to clear out the remaining prisoners. The interrogation room was unguarded, and the prisoner Helena had hidden was still inside. Seizing the moment, the woman emerged and rushed to rescue Helena. Together, they fled the room. Before leaving, Helena sneaked into the officer's office one last time and stole a pistol. With the Germans occupied with their cleanup, the two women had the perfect chance to escape. They hid in a truck among body bags. When the truck reached the burial site, they jumped out. Then, taking the Germans by surprise, they opened fire, killing them and escaping the blood-soaked camp. Afterward, Helena bid farewell to her companion and headed alone toward the valley. She wanted to return to the cabin where she and Johannes had once stayed, their happiest memory. They had promised, if ever separated, they would meet there. Though the officer had said Johannes' unit was destroyed, Helena believed he was still alive. After a long journey, she reached the cabin, but inside, she was startled to find the hunter, the one who had once fired at them. Upon hearing Helena's plan to wait for Johannes, the hunter was moved by her devotion. He offered her the cabin and left her food and even his rifle, and so Helena waited day after day, hope mixed with sorrow. Sometimes she feared Johannes was truly gone, but she kept encouraging herself. Clinging to hope, she refused to leave for food, afraid to miss him if he came. Deep down, though, she was starting to believe the worst. Weak with hunger, on the verge of death, her mind fading suddenly, the door burst open. Through the haze, she saw Johannes. They gazed at each other silently. After a moment, Johannes softly said, "I'm back." Tears poured from Helena's eyes, an emotion no one could understand unless they had lived it. I'm a movie enthusiast. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.